Give me one moment here. All right. Board of Alders notice, New Haven. The Joint Community Development and Legislation Committee of the Board of Alders will meet on Wednesday, December 15th, 2021 at 6:00 p.m. via video conference at https://bit.ly/3x7zn84 and by phone at 646-558-8656, webinar ID 917-5088-5704 to hear and act on the following items. 1. LM-2021-0478. Order of the Board of Alders of the City of New Haven approving the modification of Planned Development District number 49 to A, expand the boundaries of Parcel K to include the entirety of the real property known as 291 Ashman Street, 309 Ashman Street, and 178 to 186 Canal Street, MBLU 282-0348-00202, and B, to allow for residential use of up to 176 apartment units, 88 or more parking spaces, and related community/amenity space. Per order, Honorable Charles Decker, co-chair, and Honorable Brian Wingate, co-chair. Attest, Honorable Michael Smart, City Clerk. These items are on file and available at the office of the City Clerk, room 202 at 200 Orange Street, New Haven, Connecticut 06510. Since this meeting will be held using solely electronic equipment, participation by a quorum of members at the same physical location is prohibited unless that location is made open to the public. Any member of the public may request in writing a physical location and any electronic equipment necessary to attend the meeting in real time, no later than 24 hours prior to the meeting. Said person shall have the same opportunities to provide comment or otherwise participate in the meeting as would be afforded if the meeting were held in person, with the following exception. Under law, the committee is not required to adjourn or postpone the meeting if any person loses the ability to participate because of an interruption, failure, or degradation of any person's connection to the meeting by electronic equipment. For accommodations to view the meeting, please email public testimony at newhavenct.gov or call 203-946-6483. For accessibility related accommodations, please call 203-946-7651 voice or 203-946-8582 TTY TDD. Public comment/testimony may also be submitted via email to publictestimony@newhavenct.gov before 2:00 p.m. on the day of the meeting. If you wish to present testimony at the meeting, you must register in advance at https://bit.ly/3x7zn84 or by calling 203-946-7934 or emailing publictestimony@newhavenct.gov before 2:00 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Public can view the meeting at https://bit.ly/3x7zn84 or listen by phone at 646-558-8656. Webinar ID 917-5088-5704. The password to listen by phone only is 450-722-722. Good evening, colleagues. Even when it's only one item, it sort of seems like a marathon of a notice. So this is a meeting of the Joint Community Development and Legislation Committees. So as to not, play favorites with one committee or the other. The way that I'm going to call roll is I'm going to recognize or ask for my co-chair and vice chairs, and then I'm going to call the members of the committee alphabetically and hope that I didn't miss anybody. So let us call the roll, starting with myself, Charles Decker. I am the chair of the Legislation Committee, co-chair of this joint committee. I represent Ward 9. Do we have my co-chair, Alder Wingate, yet? We do not. Alder Furlow.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Richard Furlow, Vice Chair, Ward 27, Legislation Committee.
Good evening, sir. Do we have Vice Chair Douglas yet? Not quite yet. Very good. Alder Brackeen, I don't see Alder Cupo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ellen Cupo, Ward 8. Sorry.
Welcome. Alder DeCola.
Alder DeCola, Ward 18, CD.
Welcome, sir. Alder Edwards.
Alder Edwards, Ward 19, Community Development.
Welcome, Alder Edwards. Alder Ferraro Santana.
Alder Rosa Ferraro Santana, Ward 13, Legislation.
Good evening. Alder Marchand, I know will be joining us, but is not here yet. Alder Marks, I do not see. Alder Morrison.
Alder Jeanette Morrison, Ward 22, Legislation.
Welcome, Alder Morrison. Alder Carmen Rodriguez, I do not see. Hopefully she'll join us as well. I believe that's all the members of the joint committee, and wouldn't you know it, we have a quorum. Just scanning the attendees to see if we have any colleagues not on this committee who have joined us. I do not see any. We have one item before us tonight. It's a PDD, which is the reason for it being a joint committee. And we also received an amendment by substitution earlier today, just to clarify much of the language. And so as we get later in the meeting and time for deliberations, folks can remember that we may wish to make a motion to amend to reflect that. But at this point, I would like to call the makers of this item to please come join us.
Good evening.
Good evening. We're joined by a few folks. So as folks are joining the panel room, you may proceed however you wish in terms of who's giving what part of what presentation, but I would just remind folks, please, before you speak, to give your name and address for the record, which I am saying here off the bat so that otherwise my vice chair will remind us all several times.
May we proceed?
You may.
Thank you. Good evening. We're pleased to be here. My name is Roland Young. I am a partner at McCarter and English. Our office is at 185 Asylum Street in Hartford. I represent RJ Development and Advisors in making this application, as well as in the overall development. This request and to amend the PDD is a continuation of the approval that you granted last November for a DLDA and related agreements that was awarded pursuant to a competitive process to my client for the development of the property. I'm not going to go through the address, but it's colloquially referred to as the pork chop, as Mike Pinto would say, on Ashman and Canal Street in Science Park. This was anticipated as part of the DLDA that was negotiated and has been executed by both the city and my client because the parcel is bisected at this point by the PDD 49. So a portion of the property is in PDD 49. A portion of the property is in RH2, which prevents it from being developed as proposed and pursuant to the DLDA. What we have requested is a zoning map amendment to include the entirety of the parcel in PDD 49, and then a text amendment to PDD 49 to permit this development. At present time, and this is only with respect to this parcel, which is identified as parcel K in this PDD, at present, the only uses that are permitted on this parcel are a daycare center and parking. And that is really not in line with what the city has envisioned in terms of residential housing in that area. I have here with me Katie Gadman and I believe also Jay Brotman. The architect is with us. Katie is the engineer, as well as my client, Eves Joseph. Katie will get into a little bit more detail on what exactly we're requesting on the text amendment. But just as a general matter, All of this is being done so that we can achieve up to 176 units of residential housing, a minimum of 88 parking spaces, related amenity, community type space in the building as well. And with that, I will turn it over to Katie to walk through some more of the detail.
Hi, I'm Katie Gagnon from Langen Engineering at 555 Long Wharf Drive in New Haven, Connecticut. I'll share my screen.
As you're getting your screen up, I see Alder Frank Douglas in the attendees list. So staff, if staff could let him in, and I'm just gonna give him an opportunity to introduce himself when he gets in, and then we can proceed. Alder Douglas, care to introduce yourself quickly?
Thank you. Alder Frank Douglas, Ward 2, Vice Chair of Community Development. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Chair.
Thank you, sir. You may proceed.
Okay, so just walking quickly through the site, as I'm sure you know, it's bound by Canal Street to the east, Ashman to the west, and Henry Street to the north, and some existing residential uses to the south. The proposed project includes an L-shaped building, primarily fronting Henry Street and Canal Street for a total of 176 units. Parking is proposed as an on-grade parking lot, accessed via 3 proposed driveways, 1 full movement driveway on Ashman and 2 along Canal Street. The portion of the building along Canal Street sits over the parking lot, and in total, we're proposing a minimum of 0.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit. Open space is provided throughout the project area in front of the building along Henry Street, and then also south of the building adjacent to the parking lot and further south. We are proposing a screen fence and evergreen plantings along the residential properties to help screen the proposed project. We have a preliminary grading and drainage plan, which we've identified potential locations for underground detention to meet section 60 of the zoning code that requires a minimum of 1 inch of water to be retained on the site. Generally, the site is flat and the grades would mimic the existing grades to the extent possible. Just a quick, some building floor plans. The first floor of the building only has building along the front part, sort of along Henry, with the parking lot at grade. And then floors 2 through 5 are the residential units with a mixture of studios, 1 and 2 bedrooms for, like I said, floors 2 through 5. And sort of a preliminary perspective rendering of what the project would look like. So that's just sort of a run through of the project.
I would also like to point out that pursuant to the DLDA and related agreements, a third of the units will be set aside as affordable. And so the affordability levels are no fewer than 25 units will be available for people at or below 80% of area median income. No fewer than 15 units will be set aside for people at 60% of area median income, and no fewer than 10 units will be set aside for those people who have Section 8 housing choice vouchers. And with that, I guess we would open it to questions that you might have, unless Yves, you want to add anything more before we go to that.
Before I let you respond, I just would like to recognize my co-chair, Alder Wingate, who has joined us. Alder Wingate, if you're there, would you like to introduce yourself? I think perhaps he'll be with us shortly. And then also Alder Carmen Rodriguez, who has joined us. Alder Rodriguez, care to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alder Carmen Rodriguez, Ward 6.
Welcome, Alder. Alder Wingate, I see you on camera. Well, he'll be back. Okay, you may proceed.
Eves, I don't know if you wanted to add anything before we go to questions.
Thank you, Roland. Members or alders and members of the Joint Community Development and Legislative Committees, thank you for your time. Thank you for the privilege to be before you presenting this project. We've been studiously pursuing this for many years, trying to refine it and present the very best possible proposal that is consistent with all our prior meetings and discussions. We believe that this does that. And we are available to you to answer any questions you might have. Thank you for allowing us to be before you.
Thank you. If there's nothing further from the applicants, I will now ask if there are members of this joint committee who have any questions. Any questions for the applicant? You may raise your hand either on your camera or with your little icon. I see and recognize Alder Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. I just wanted, thank you everyone for coming tonight, and thank you, Mr. Eves, for, being so persistent in with this project in the Dixville community, and thank you for your partnership in ensuring that affordable housing is a part of this project, which I believe will be an example to the city in regards to how you do affordable housing. If you want to, when you want to build. I just wanted you to, explain to the committee what your process will look like to involve the community around the building specifics. What are your plans to make sure that their voices are heard? And then if you can also explain to the committee what you've done thus far to inform the committee around what you're looking to do.
Absolutely.
And that's in no in particular order, however way you want to address that.
Alder Morrison, thank you for the question, and thank you for the statement acknowledging the commitment to affordable housing. We certainly believe that mixed income development is the right way to develop, and so we're pleased to be able to present what we think is an innovative solution to deliver mixed income new construction that includes a material contribution to building the workforce and affordable housing stock in New Haven. So thank you for that, for highlighting and lifting that aspect up. Pertaining to your question around community engagement, it's a process that is extremely important to us, and a process that we take very, very seriously, even up to this date, as we were going through the process of defining the DLDA, defining the building program, defining the affordability, and thinking preliminarily about building design. We worked with you, Alder Morrison, to assemble a community meeting that was held at, where was it held? I want to say it was
Trinity Temple Church.
Trinity Temple Church, absolutely. We held the community meeting at Trinity Temple Church, which was quite well attended. And at that meeting, we made ourselves available to present preliminary thoughts on design, as well as preliminary thoughts on the overall building program, number of units, configuration of those units, et cetera, and received some really quality input that I think has now been translated and incorporated into the design that was just ran through by Katie Gagnon previously. We intend to continue to do another series of community meetings beginning in January, whereby we will present iterations, options of the design that is evolving as our architects are continuing to work on refining that design, with the objective of not presenting a baked solution that is so far along that it cannot yet be changed, but to present an early draft so that we can receive a round of feedback in January and hopefully incorporate a large amount of that feedback into the building design. In addition to, and that will go in a parallel path with what's called a design review process, whereby we will be working with city plan staff, including Aisha, to work through the evolution of our design side by side with city staff, as they'll be providing input into final design as well. So the idea is to get feedback from the community as well as feedback from the city while we're going forward through the process to finalize a design that really is being able to be touched by all parties, the community, the city, and us as the sponsor. Prior to construction, we will also be holding a series of job fairs. This may not necessarily be directly the question you asked, Alder Morrison, but I think it was important to highlight our commitment to making sure that the community is aware of the employment opportunities on our site during construction, making the trades aware of the packages that will be going out to bid in advance so that they can bid, and hopefully our site can be an example of inclusive construction that is effectively leveraging the talent that we have in our city of New Haven to build our projects. We have very successfully executed prior projects in the city with such a strategy and delivered projects that were, I think, exemplary with respect to their ability to meet local community hiring, minority and women, supplier diversity, et cetera, goals. So Alder Morrison, I don't know if that was a comprehensive response, but I'm happy to elaborate if that was in any way deficient.
That was a very good response, but because you added on, I need to add on. And then my add-on is more so, what is your, as far as the employment goal, what is your employment goal for minorities and women owned companies and labor? Because I know the minimum is 25%, be it 10% Black, 13% Hispanic, and I think 10% or 17% women. So totaling, I know that math doesn't add up, but totaling a 25% expectation. What would your goal be? If you can answer that, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Mr. East.
No, I mean, look, the candid answer is our goal is to maximize. Our goal is always to maximize the number of New Haven residents that we can put on our jobs and the number of minority and women-owned companies that we can hire. So we're gonna always, our objective is to maximize. That being said, the DLDA very clearly stipulates what the minimum threshold numbers are. Attorney Young is on the phone, so perhaps she has those statistics.
Yeah, I don't have the percentages off the top, but all of the hiring requirements of the city of 12.5 and 12.25 are incorporated into your DLDA agreements. So all of those will definitely be met. And as Eve said, the goal is to exceed those.
Okay. I'm going to say one last thing, Mr. Chair, and I'll move on. Two things. One, I don't know if that was the goal, but the outcome was 52% at Q House. And then the other piece was, oh God, I just lost it. We had 52% at Q House. Oh, and then my question to you, Mr. Josephs, do you plan on working with New Haven Works in regards to helping you meet that number as far as laborers are concerned? Because New Haven Works is our beloved entity that helps New Haven residents with getting jobs, and they do have construction pipelines specifically through New Haven Works that helps with minority laborers, and that's all I have.
To respond, Alder Morrison, we absolutely intend to work closely with New Haven Works, and we have a strong track record of success working with them in the past.
Thank you, Mr. Josephs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alder Morrison. Do colleagues have any other questions for the presenters? And as I'm asking that, I wanted to quickly ask, I see in the attendees list a couple of people marked architect. Are they part of your presentation, and should they be part of this, or are they perhaps members of the public?
Jay Brotman is a part of our team, so he can be elevated.
Okay, if staff would elevate Jay Brotman, that would be great. And now, as that's happening, I recognize Alder Furlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation, everyone. So I'm going to go back to what we're actually voting on. So you're building 176 apartments, up to 176 apartments, and you're asking for 88 parking spaces. Of these apartments, there are how many that are affordable? I'm just wondering if what I'm reading is right.
I'm sorry.
33.
Oh, go ahead.
33% of whatever is built will be affordable, Alder Furlow, 33%. And if it is 176 units would yield 58 affordable units. I believe that's the math.
Okay, and when we're saying affordable, is this Section 8 affordable, or is it, how are you?
So it's actually broken out in the DLDA and the related agreements into 3 tiers, if you will. A minimum of 25 of the units have to be affordable to people making 80% or less of the area median income. A minimum of 15 of the units have to be available to people making 60% or less of AMI. And then a minimum of 10 units have to be made available for people holding Section 8 vouchers. When the DLDA was originally crafted, it assumed that there would be about 150 units, and they were able to figure out how to put more units on the property. So those numbers will probably fluctuate, but they will not go below what I just told you in terms of the number of units. But that is the income tier. It's 80%, 60%, and in Section 8 vouchers.
I think it's important for us to have that on the record in this discussion, Mr. Chair. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Alder Furlow. I recognize Alder Kupo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for being here tonight. To kind of continue off from the majority leaders' line of questioning about affordable units. So I see here the tiers 80%, 60%, and the portion that are set aside for Section 8. One question I have, I also noticed that the affordable units are only going to be affordable for 20 years. Can you talk a little bit more about what happens after that point?
So the affordability is tied to the tax agreement that you also have authorized for this property and this development. And the tax agreement has a 20-year term. And so that affordability period is tied to that tax agreement. At the end of that affordability period, there would be an ability, if a tax agreement were not negotiated, there would be an ability to go ahead and rent these out on a market rate basis. But this is what is in the agreements that you authorized a year ago and that have been executed.
And one other question for Mr. Joseph. Thank you for being here this evening. At the time of the community meeting with Alder Morrison, was it disclosed the AMI, intended AMI to constituents, pardon me, and neighbors?
So at the time of the community meeting with Alder Morrison, I believe we were still in kind of general discussion around finalizing the terms of the DLDA. So I don't know that we had a specific resolution at that time, but we certainly were communicating very clearly that there was an expectation around affordability in this development. and in the tiers that were ultimately that are ultimately being presented before you today. So we were certainly having this discussion, but I don't know that we had a specific proposal and outcome at that time, as we were in the middle of conversations.
Mhm. Okay, and I wonder, that's all for me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Pupo. Further questions from members of the committee? Further questions? I have, I believe, two questions. So one is, this committee received earlier today some substitute amendment language that staff has provided for us. And I was wondering if somebody, perhaps Corporation Counsel Pinto, could walk us through what we're looking at here, since we received it this afternoon.
Hi, Michael Pinto, Assistant Corporation Counsel, 449 Central Avenue, New Haven, Connecticut. What we submitted this morning in coordination with the Office of Legislative Services was simply to correct the formatting and adjust the recitals and specific findings. So as you go through it, let me just pull my, while I'm looking at my red line copy. Let me open it up so I can walk you through the red line copy. That probably makes the most sense. Sorry, I should have had this open.
No problem. While you're opening that up, this is Corporation Counsel Pinto. I see Mr. Joseph has his hand raised. I recognize you. Except you're on mute.
Thank you, Alder Chair. I did not state my name and address for the record. Should I do that?
I should have caught that. Yes, you should. Thank you.
Eve Joseph, Principal, RJ Development, 555 Long Wharf Drive, 11th floor, New Haven, Connecticut, 06511.
Great, thank you.
Okay. In working with with Misty Mazza at Legislative Services, she pointed out a couple making sure that we had the correct technical language and the correct and also the appropriate findings that and the appropriate sort of legislative history to this. So as Attorney Young pointed out earlier, this is a slightly because there are three parcels that the city is proposing to transfer to the developer, and that they're at so in effect a portion of this pork chop, when you sort of put it all together, is in the RH2 zone, and part of it is already in PDD 49. The flexibility of the PDD seemed the most appropriate zoning vehicle. The other option was going to BZA for combining these, and then going to BZA for a series of amendments or variances, but this seemed more clear. However, because the PDD modification is actually a text amendment to allow the specific uses on parcel K, and a map amendment to incorporate the to remap the RH2 portions into PDD 49 parcel K. That's what you see here. So the title of it, of the actual the ordinance amendment is, we're modifying it, three parts: modifying the plan PDD 49 to include all on parcel K, all of these three properties, 291, 309, 291 Ashman, 309 Ashman, and 176, 186 Canal Street. Rezoning, in effect, remapping the portion that is in RH2 into PDD 49 and to change the uses. As you may be aware, the science PDD 49 covers most of Science Park, and there's numerous parcels, each of which have their own use table because it's such a in part, obviously, it was most PDDs obviously have sort of one use table as to what is allowed in that PDD, but because there were so many different pieces that were developed at different times, each of the parcels has their own zoning table. And what we're addressing here is specifically parcel K and allowing in effect, allowing the specific use of building this building, which would be up to 176 residential rental units, the 88 parking spaces, and related community amenity space. But the other pieces that we have here, because it's a zoning amendment, there are certain requirements of that it's permitted under section 64 and 65. And then specifically identifying in Schedule A the property descriptions of the 3 parcels, proposing the uses for parcel K, and then the specific findings, because we have already gone to the City Plan Commission and the public hearing was held on December 1st, and then on December 6th the City Plan Commission issued its findings, and then here we're following up with the text amendment. This was Misty was very helpful in making sure we had the technical language of ordaining the changes, and making the specific findings that that are required of a PDD, that it's in harmony with the and purposes of the comprehensive plan. It's designed in its allocation and orientation and landscaping as to create a stable environment, and that we are working and we have worked with City Plan Department, and they have an interpretation on the layout of the open space requirement that will incorporate because the canal greenway goes through, that the City Plan Department agrees that use of, or incorporating the greenway or effectively counting that as part of the open space is acceptable, and that it meets the other portions of the zoning ordinance. So therefore, that you're now agreeing to remap all of this as PDD 49 parcel K, and approving the uses that as proposed in as laid out by Katie earlier. So that's just for purposes of making sure that we have all of the I's dotted and T's crossed, I would humbly recommend and request that we use that you approve the substituted language that was submitted. So I'm happy to take any questions, as I probably fumbled that ball several times on the way down the field.
Thank you for that thorough explanation. So it would be fair then to say that the changes in the substitute amendment amount to clarification and technical rather than substantive?
Yes, there is sort of one, ironically, I'm sure it's in your packet. There was the original order references a certain map block parcel unit number. One of the reasons we had to substitute the specific language of the actual property descriptions taken from the title reporting is that map block parcel unit actually, for whatever reason, in the assessor's records, it comes up all as 220 Ashland Street, and we do not want to change the zoning for 220 Ashland Street. We only want to change it for the parcels that are actually part of the development here.
Got it. I have one follow-up question, but first, I see Alder Marchand has been waiting in the attendees list. If staff could promote him to a panelist as well, as he's a member of the joint committee, that would be lovely. So my follow-up question is, it has to do with one of the changes to the whereas clauses that you mentioned. So this committee also received in our packet the City Plan Commission report for this submission. And the recommendation was approval with a condition, and that condition being that this application be basically brought into compliance to meet the zoning ordinance section. I have 65A4, a requirement to provide 250 square feet of open space per dwelling unit. I just wanted to ask either Assistant Corporation Counsel Pinto or others whether you're aware of that recommendation and whether that is, whether that works.
Yes, we're aware of that condition, and after that meeting after the public hearing at City Plan, we met with City Plan to review what the options were, and we also met with RJ Development to look at the options, and also particularly on the legal question of whether the open space had to be, in most PDs, it has to be accounted for somewhere on the tract, which is the overall PDD. Again, because PDD 49 has these sort of broken up parcels, all of them together comprise the tract, and it also has the unique situation that the greenway is actually within the canal line is actually within the mapping of the PDD. So in consultation with our office and with City Plan Department, we have come to the understanding and agreement that the greenway space can be used to count towards the required 30. If it at 176 units, it's 37,000 square feet, of which 17,000 is provided already on the site, actually on parcel K. The balance would be accounted for as in the makeup of the canal space, or the canal line. And that, and in fact, that position will be the same one taken. You'll at some point see another PDD on what's being referred to as the Twinings, and they, in effect, we've agreed that they could actually use that as shared space, because you have this large park space that's already incorporated. Most parks aren't actually in the confines of the PDD, whereas this unique situation at Science Park, the greenway actually lies within the PDD boundaries.
Got it. So if this committee were, for example, should we move this item tonight to motion to amend the order to include that condition, you would be in favor of that?
Well, I think that it was that, and that's fine. I mean, at some point, there needs to be a finding made that it's been satisfied. That if the committee concurs that the canal line is several. Is probably that portion of, and this is counting only the portion that's within PDD 49 itself, of the not trying to take advantage of the entire canal line, but there is more than ample space for both this and the subsequent project coming down the pike. In fact, we would actually recommend that the open space requirement of 250 square feet per unit has been met by the concurrence of the committee and the City Plan Department and Corporation Council, that the canal line has sufficient space to account for it.
Understood. Okay, I think I follow.
mean,
Thank you. That answers my question.
Yeah, as a technical question, I think you need to make the finding that it has been met.
Right. Okay, I think I follow. Thank you for that. I'd like to recognize Alder Adam Marchand, who has joined us, who is a member of this joint committee. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Adam Marchand, Alder for Ward 25, member of the Legislation Committee.
Welcome, Alder. You came in just in time for the City Planning Commission discussion. Are there other members of this committee who have questions for the presenters? Any other members of the committee who have questions? Seeing none, we thank you. Please stick around while I ask if there are any members of the public who wish to be heard on this item. If there are any members of the public who wish to be heard on this item, please raise your virtual hand or otherwise make yourself known to staff. And I will ask a third and final time, are there any members of the public who wish to be heard on this item? I see that there are people on the attendees list, but they all seem to have titles, so perhaps they're just here to observe. Seeing none, I will ask one last time if while we have these presenters, if there are members of the committee who have any final questions before we move on. Seeing none, I will entertain motions.
Mr. Chair, I maintain a motion to close the public portion.
Second.
There's been a motion which has been seconded to close the public portion of this meeting. Any discussion? Alder Furlow, you have your hand up. Is that to discuss this motion or is that for later?
I was actually going to make a motion to close the public portion, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
So we can call it thirded, even though that's not a thing. Very good. Seeing no discussion, I will call the roll. I think I remember who's here. Alder Furlow.
Yes.
Alder Kupo.
Yes.
Alder DeCola.
Yes.
Alder Edwards.
Yes.
Alder Ferrara Santana.
Yes.
Alder Marchand.
Yes.
Alder Morrison.
Yes.
And Alder Rodriguez.
Yes.
I am yes as well. I didn't miss anyone, did I? Great. The public
Alder
portion.
Douglas.
Alder Douglas. Pardon me. Skip right over you.
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Alder Douglas. You're on my sheet. It's I think I actually maybe skipped all the vice chairs. Pardon me. All right. Well, the public portion of this meeting is closed. Thank you all. I will entertain further motions. I will remind colleagues that there's a substitute amendment that staff and the Assistant Corporation Counsel Pinto have recommended that we move, but I will entertain motions generally. Alder Furlow.
Mr. Chair, I move the item.
Second.
Item 1, the only item we have on our agenda tonight, has been moved and seconded. Discussion. Alder Furlow, is your hand still up for that? Alder Morrison.
My eyes have been dilated, Mr. Chair. So I'm
Not a problem.
I'm navigating today.
Not a problem. Thank you. Thank you for soldiering through. Alder Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in support of this project. The land in my ward has been vacant like for 20 years. And it's the last button of Dixwell. It's the last open parcel group of parcels, basically. And I must say, Mr. Joseph is very persistent in wanting to ensure that Dixwell receives one of his very fancy buildings. And even when we told him no some years ago, I guess he didn't hear no because he came back. And even when I pushed and said, I need 50 units affordable, everybody told me I was crazy. They weren't going to do it. And he did it. And so he believes in what I believe in for Dixwell. Everyone needs to be able to live very nice. And I've seen this work. The project is beautiful. And I love the fact that he is really committed to ensuring that the community voice is heard through this project. As he said, we already have a community meeting set to discuss the specifics of this building. And so once again, the Dixwell community will have their hands specifically in the development of our community. And so this is really a good project. One thing I did want to say also is that Alder Kupo asked about the 20 years. And so when we a year ago voted to give the tax break for 20 years, prior to that, I asked Mr. Josephs, as Alder Kupo asked, what happens after that? And he said, as long as you want to be in partnership with the tax break, I will continue to ensure that those affordable units are in the building. And so it's up to us as a community to continue with that. And so year 18, 2 years prior to the end of the tax break, it is written that it'll come back to look at, what that deal would look like for the next 20 years. And so, but yeah, this is really a good project for my ward. And I thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Alder Morrison, and thank you especially for your perspective as the alder of that ward. I recognize Alder Marchand, who will be followed by Alder Douglas.
Mr. Chair, I move the substitute amendment recommended by the staff.
Second.
There's been a motion to amend by, a motion to amend by substitution. Discussion, Alder Marchand.
Mr. Chair, I believe our Assistant Corporation Counsel gave us the reasons why these technical and clarifying changes are to be recommended, and I encourage colleagues to support the motion to amend. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Marchand. Further discussion on the amendment only? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Alder Furlow.
Yes.
Thank you, Alder Douglas.
Yes.
Alder Kupo.
Yes.
Alder DeCola.
Yes.
Alder Edwards.
Yes.
Alder Farrar Santana.
yes,
Alder Marchand.
Yes.
Alder Morrison.
Yes.
Alder Rodriguez.
yes,
Alder Decker is yes as well. The amendment carries. We are now back to the item as amended. So discussion on the item as amended. I had Alder Douglas before. So Alder Douglas, if you still like to speak, I recognize you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also rise to support this project. Dixwell neighborhood is very dear to my heart. That's where I was raised. That's where I was brought up. Most important years. To see what's been done in the Dixwell in the past 10, 15, even 20 years, I'm very proud to say that Dixwell has been a home for me, and hopefully these days I hope to return. Even though I am the alder in Ward 2, Dixwell, like I said, is very dear to my heart, and this project just signs and seals a great deal that uplifts Dixwell, and I'm going to support it. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and everyone that's worked hard on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Douglas. Further discussion on the item as amended. I recognize Alder Furlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too am very pleased to be able to support this item as amended when I hear Ashman Street, and also to support the work that our colleague from Ward 22 has done to bring this to fruition. But I think about my dad and his family who lived on Ashman Street in the 1940s. And so this goes back quite a ways. And to see what it was, well, I wasn't there then, but I have pictures of what it was like in that day, and to see what it's turning into through these top-notch developers and architects. It's a real turnaround. I'm glad that it's affordable. I'm glad to hear that this is going to be revisited a couple of years before the 20 years runs out. And so this fits in with what we're doing with affordable housing. And so I encourage my colleagues also to vote this favorably to our full board. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Furlow. Further discussion, I recognize Alder Marchand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say that, as was mentioned earlier, the City Plan Commission voted to give this item a favorable recommendation to this committee and to the Board of Alders. I also support it. I think that the zoning changes that are here proposed will enable the kind of project that was envisioned in the DLDA. And it totally lines up with our legislative agenda. And so I recommend colleagues to vote yes on the motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Marchand. Any further discussion on the item as amended? Any further discussion? One more time, any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll on the item as amended. Alder Furlow.
Yes.
Alder Douglas.
Yes.
Alder Cupo.
Yes.
Alder DeCola.
Yes.
Alder Edwards.
Yes.
Alder Farrar Santana.
yes,
Alder Marchand.
Yes.
Alder Morrison.
Yes.
Alder Rodriguez.
yes,
Alder Decker is yes as well. The item carries favorably. Further motions, if any, or we could sit here forever.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
There's been a motion that we leave / adjourn discussion.
I'm sorry.
The motion has been made and seconded that we adjourn discussion. Seeing none, I will call the roll. Alder Furlow.
Yes.
Alder Douglas.
Yes.
Alder Cupo.
Yes.
Alder DeCola.
Yes.
Alder Edwards.
Yes.
Alder Farrar Santana.
yes.
Alder Marchand.
Yes.
Alder Morrison.
Yes.
Alder Rodriguez.
yes.
Decker is yes as well. We are adjourned. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank you.
great evening.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Great job, Jeanette.